New tonight on Our News Live at 7, the man gunned down outside his Abaco home is remembered as a breath of fresh air. Our Megan Shepard speaks with his girlfriend tonight.
I'm Jasmine Brown, and coming up tonight on Our News, it's a new year, and the Prime Minister outlines his administration's new agenda. And the rising cost of power hitting a Grand Bahama elderly home hard as it struggles to keep the lights on. And then in Our News at 7:30, our Italia Hall joins us live from the unveiling of the 50th anniversary of Independence logo. It's going on in Rawson Square this evening. Our News Live at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. Crime, education, and the economy topping the government's agenda this year. The Prime Minister outlining those areas during the 32nd Bahamas Business Outlook held this morning at Bahamas. Jasmine Brown has the details in this report. Prime Minister Philip Davis says his administration has a plan that they're determined to execute this year.
In the coming 12 months, we will focus on 3 key areas.
Those key areas include education, crime, and, of course, the economy. And when it comes to the economy, Davis says they're pushing for growth in not only GDP, but also revenue and investments. What they want to see reduced is debt.
That said, we will put particular focus on reducing the cost of living and making efforts to lift people out of poverty. Even though the inflationary pressures are largely the result of global events and foreign economies, we will do whatever we can to ease the burden on Bahamian consumers.
Another key focus for the Davis administration is education, which the PM labeled as the main driver for national development. He says not only does that mean paying teachers more, like a retention bonus, but also taking a serious look at tackling aging infrastructure at public school campuses. When it comes to crime, Davis says it continues to be a vexing issue, and he says they've taken their concerns as far as the United States White House during his meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris on Tuesday.
Central to our discussion were issues relating to illegal maritime migration and gun smuggling. We agreed to broaden and strengthen the already strong partnership between our 2 countries in fighting these scourges.
Now, while the Prime Minister did not give a timeline for achieving these objectives, he says his administration will do its best to achieve them as quickly as possible. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks a lot, Jasmine. We've got more from the Prime Minister's address coming up in just a moment, but first, the girlfriend of the man who was gunned down outside his Abaco home earlier this week is speaking out. Our Megan Shepard has her story.
24-year-old John Joseph was gunned down outside his Bahama Coral home on Monday. Police say a lone gunman approached Joseph and shot him multiple times before escaping in a black Japanese vehicle. His girlfriend of almost 5 years remembers him as her breath of fresh air.
It was my everything back in. It's my everything.
That is the voice of 22-year-old Alexis Denoy. Denoy says they met in October 2018 and instantly hit it off.
He was a family person. He would give anybody a shot. You know? That was someone you could call out at any hour and he would get up and do whatever he could to actually help in whichever area he could.
She says Joseph was never a violent person, which makes his murder even more of a senseless act.
So the way he was murdered, it was never called for at all, you know. He was never a violent person. That's why a lot of people were shocked because they know he was a sweet boy. And they'd be like, I never just was the boy who helped me a couple of years ago, you know, because that was the type of person he was. Kelly, the boy had a big, big heart.
As the community comes together to remember him, she says those memories keep her going.
It hasn't dawned on me as yet. I feel like he's just on another trip. But he's also a boat captain.
She says for years, boating was his passion.
Always on the water. Always on the water. And he told me one day, I'll teach you how to fish. He'd be like, he always said, like, you're a fake island girl. You can't swim, you can't fish.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
All right, thanks a lot, Megan. And a man accused of revenge murder has been granted $9,000 bail. Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson granting Brandon Evans bail after finding that he wasn't a flight risk. Prosecutors say the 29-year-old construction worker is responsible for the October 7, 2022 murder of Andy John. At the time of his death, Johnson was on bail for the 2019 murder of Evans's brother, Brian Evans. Now, as a condition of bail, Evans will be electronically monitored and is required to check in at the police station on weekdays and keep a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. He's banned from deliberate contact with prosecution witnesses and has to surrender into custody on the first day of his trial. All right, much more to get to in a moment, but for now, meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center with your first look at temperatures. And Greg, I know that you're saying that these temperatures are with us for a while, but I feel like hope is on the horizon.
Yeah,
things are warming up.
It's warming up. You notice the temperatures at nighttime now getting up into the 70s. We were seeing 50s and 60s, but yeah, we're starting to see that warm up, and we continue to see that trend throughout the remainder of the week. Outside our studios right now, though, it's 76 under partly cloudy skies. Your winds are out of the south-southeast at 6 miles per hour. That is what's bringing in the warm air mass. And your feels like temperature at 74 degrees. Temperatures around the islands tonight, warmer across the northwest Bahamas, 74 in Freeport as well as in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, 75 in Alistown, Bimini, and in Governor's Harbor, 78 in Great Harbor, Key, that's in the Berries, Nicholstown, Andros, 77, here in the capital, as I mentioned, 76. Central Bahamas, 75 in Kemps Bay, 76 in Arthurstown, Cat Island, a pair of 77s in Georgetown and in Deadman's Key, 75 in Coburn, San Salvador, and temperatures in the southeast Bahamas, warmer still, 78 in Dunkertown, Ragged Island, as well as Delectable Bay. Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, 77, Abraham's Bay, 77, Matthewtown, 76, and our neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you got a cool 72 down there. You might have some clouds and isolated showers down in that location. Satellite view, another quiet day around the islands. Lots of sunshine. Temperatures managed to get up into the 80s. And of course, we had a lot of sunshine, and that allowed some patchy clouds across our area to dissipate. A lot of high clouds associated with the frontal boundary now moving across the northern portion of Florida. Not really expecting that front to get here. It should scrape or, well, just park just to the north of the Bahamas, and then we expect a second front sometime on Monday, so it looks as though the high pressure system will remain in charge for the remainder of the weekend into the weekend. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, the Prime Minister stresses the need for disaster management, and a Grand Bahama elderly home is struggling to keep the lights on following a hike in power bills. We'll tell you what they need to help make ends meet, and a plea for the AOS to provide climate action funding. That's coming up when our news returns. The IDB's Iterate P2RC2 Symposium, where he drove the challenges with rebuilding following worsening natural disasters. Referencing 2019's Hurricane Dorian, Davis says debt remains high due to the need to rebuild amid inflationary pressures. He says the Bahamas is already paying for climate change.
Our debt burden remains high, in significant part due to these climate risks, including the need to regularly rebuild homes, businesses, and infrastructure after devastating hurricanes. Our cost of borrowing prices in the risk of future hurricanes, so we are, in a sense, already paying a high price for the intensifying weather patterns of tomorrow.
Amid the grim reality, the Prime Minister says some European countries backtracked on their pledges to reduce carbon emissions to meet their energy needs. He stressed the need for agency collaborations, saying no ministry is an island.
It is vital that climate change, disaster risk reduction, and health risk management be tackled using an integrated approach. As the pandemic wanes, we have to ensure that the targets of the Paris Agreement remain a central priority.
And the owner of Burroughs Home for the Aged says the home is struggling to pay their power bill since Grand Bahama Power Company implemented an average base rate increase and a fuel charge hike on customers in 2022. Marlena Leonard is following this story.
The residents at Burroughs Home for the Aged in Grand Bahama were enjoying some time outside when we interviewed the home's owner, Irene Burroughs, about the operation of the home. Although residents are happy, Burroughs says it's harder than it looks to keep the home running.
The water and the cable, we could handle that, and the phone, but the power bill, they went up on us 40% now in November. So you could imagine, we wash at least 10 loads of clothes a day, and the power bill right now is $2,000, well, that's for 3 months.
Burroughs explains the reason behind the power consumption is the need to do multiple loads of laundry a day for their 15 live-in residents' clothing and bedding.
Some of these are living free, and they have no family. And I can't put them out because they have nowhere to go. I have 2 that have been living with me for 15 years, and they're disabled. One is mute, and the other one, she had a couple of strokes. She's in a wheelchair. She can't walk. She's paralyzed on one side.
When asked what the public can do to help, Burroughs suggests helping by going to the power company and contributing to their power bill, or helping to fundraise for solar panels to power their laundry machines. And if you're not in a position to financially donate but are looking for a way to help, Burroughs says,
most important, I would say right now, is food and power. And I would love for someone to help me fix my wall out in the front. It's been broke down from the hurricane.
The home relies largely on the donations and support of private donors and organizations like the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the Kiwanis, and Rotary Clubs. But with the rising cost of utilities and inflation hitting the grocery store shelves, Burroughs says what they also need is a government grant.
But I worry about them just like if they was my children. So they are special. And we take care of them like they're special. But they stay right here. 15 years, 10 years, like that.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda secures a 3rd term following Wednesday's election. Plus, what Prime Minister Davis is asking the OAS for. And later, Alive underscores the importance of staying connected. We'll tell you how when our news continues. This is Our News. Welcome back. Coverage of the official logo, the unveiling of the official logo, is continuing right now. If you want to watch that, you can catch it on channel 205. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Jacinda Ardern will not seek re-election and plans to step down no later than early February. The leader announcing the news in a televised statement today, choking up as she detailed how 6 challenging years in the job had taken a toll. The shock announcement comes as polling indicates her Labour Party faces a difficult path to re-election in October. Labour MPs will vote to find her replacement on Sunday.
I know there will be much discussion in the aftermath of this decision as to what the so-called real reason was. I can tell you that what I'm sharing today is it. The only interesting angle that you will find is that after going on 6 years of some big challenges, I am human. Politicians are human. We give all that we can for as long as we can, and then it's time. And for me, it's time. I think the cumulative challenges that we've faced as a team, and they have been extraordinary, has taken its toll. I consider this job a privilege, but I am also human, and so my reflection has been an entirely personal one.
Actor Alec Baldwin will be charged with involuntary manslaughter over the shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins, who was killed on a film set while he fired a prop gun. Baldwin had been rehearsing a scene for the Western film Rust when the shooting happened at a ranch near Santa Fe in New Mexico in October 2021. The film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, will also be charged. Lawyers for both said they intend to fight the charges in court. Now in the region, Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, Gaston Brown securing another election win last night, becoming the country's first prime minister to win 3 terms. In a narrow victory, his ruling Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party won 9 out of 17 contested seats. In a post-victory speech, Brown promised supporters that he will continue to work to resolve numerous issues.
That we have time now to recover our economy fully, to put you back to work, and to solve all of the issues, the water issues, the road issues, the infrastructural issues. I give you my word tonight that we will resolve those problems.
And finally, the Pan American Health Organization issuing an alert in response to the increasing detection of avian influenza outbreaks in birds in 10 countries in the region. 2 human infections have been confirmed in the region, the first in April 2022 in the United States and the second and latest on January 9th in Ecuador. PAHO stressing the importance of controlling infection in birds as the key measure to reduce the risk to humans. All right, a community council meeting is being held in Guyana today as the prelude to CARICOM's regular heads of government meeting next month, which will be held right here in New Providence. The country's delegation to Guyana is being led by Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell. Here's what he had to say is on the agenda.
We would expect that there'd be detailed discussions, particularly on the question of migration, and particularly as it affects Haitian migration and the impact which it is having on the economies of all of our countries. Of course, the Bahamas is front and center at that, and we've been working for the better part of this administration on trying to help see what we can do to resolve those issues. Climate change, along with migration, the question of food security or agriculture, as you mentioned, all of those are there. Of course, there are a number of other routine aspects to the meeting.
All right, now speaking of climate change, small island states, including the Bahamas, continue to be challenged by the effects. On Wednesday, Prime Minister addressed an international organization calling for more climate action support in the fight against it. Christina Dragovich has tonight's Sustainability First report.
Bahamas first, putting sustainability first for our people and our environment. What's first for you and the planet comes first for us.
If the OAS is to maintain its relevance for the small island and low-lying coastal developing states among its membership, it must do more to support climate action across the Americas.
The bold statement made by Prime Minister Philip Davis as he addressed a meeting of the Organization of American States Permanent Council. PM Davis says the Bahamas is the proverbial patient zero for the destruction of man-made climate change. The evidence? Destruction left by Hurricane Dorian and 11 other storms that made landfall over the past few years.
The Bahamas is leading by example through transitioning the fleet of government cars to electric vehicles and retrofitting government buildings with renewable energy infrastructure.
Davis explains our sunny skies will soon be used for energy through a partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank for the construction of solar energy projects and microgrids on islands where infrastructure was damaged by Hurricane Dorian.
We are also leveraging our vast natural oceanic sinks through launching the world's first blue carbon credits, a regime that we hope more nations across the Americas can model.
PM Davis says the Bahamas is doing its part to innovate and find solutions to the ever-present threat of climate change, but the hard truth is it will not be enough. With that, he asked for OAS support with human development and training in climate-smart skills and disaster preparedness and recovery. Reporting for Our News, I'm Christina Dragovich.
Still to come in Our News, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was January 19th and the 1959 March on Parliament for Women's Right to Vote. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in Our News at 7:30, our Talia Hall joins us live from the launch of the 50th anniversary of Independence logo. That's coming up when Our News continues. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was January 19th, including a pivotal moment in the suffrage movement. On this day in Bahamian history, in 1852, the historic Gregory Arch was officially opened on Farm Road, which is now named Market Street in Nassau. The street was named Farm Road at the time as it was the principal route for bringing produce to the market. Built during the governorship of John Gregory, the arch was built to give residents coming from Grantstown easier access to the town of Nassau. Then in 1959, Dr. Doris Johnson led a demonstration to Parliament to give a pivotal speech to members of the House of Assembly on the moral right of women to vote. The event was considered a turning point in the road to achieving suffrage, which finally came in 1962. Her efforts and that of the many other women involved in the movement during the country's colonial era continues to be recognized today. And finally, on this day in 1960, Mary Frances Mosley, editor of the Nassau Guardian, who was born in Nassau, died at the age of 81. Founded by her grandfather, Edwin Charles Mosley, in 1844, Mosley assumed responsibilities as editor in 1904, following the death of her father, becoming the publication's fourth editor. 3 years later, Mosley became owner. 45 years later, she sold the paper in 1952 and continued to serve as an advisor. All right, Cable Bahamas Group of Companies Vice President of Marketing and Consumer Solutions, Amber Carey, highlighting the company's contribution to the country over the past year. She was addressing the 32nd Annual Bahamas Business Outlook as she focused on the importance of staying connected.
The pandemic also highlighted that needs of underserved communities who do not have access to basic services. These services included things like e-government, e-commerce, remote learning, and remote work, all inaccessible due to the lack of access to online connectivity. As a responsible corporate partner, Alive worked with government agencies to deploy thousands of tablets and wireless broadband devices to students across the Bahamas to ensure they stayed connected. We also provided broadband services to frontline workers and patients in the COVID units and powered the mobile vaccination clinics.
All right, now Carey also sharing how the rollout of Alive Fiber across the country will benefit Bahamians and help residents stay connected.
So what does this mean for the Bahamas, our communities, and our businesses? It means that the Bahamas will be positioned with one of the best mobile and fixed networks in the region, ranking top 3. It means closing the digital divide with high-speed internet access for students. It means transformation of our television experience with immersive technology. It means providing businesses and organizations with a more secure and reliable network, especially considering the rapid shift towards hybrid and remote work.
All right, now to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, you can visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is our Megan Shepard with the latest headlines. Now, Megan, I know you were on a tour earlier this week. We learned about the Gregory Arch and Today in History. Did you said you learned about it too? What did
yes,
you?
And I learned that the name was originally Farm Road because that's where persons traveled to take their goods from the farm to sale, and then they changed it to Market Street, which now leads to the world-famous Bahamas straw market. So that was my lesson.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Right? And I know you've got more on that coming up in the weekend edition, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so I'll tune in.
Yes, and now we continue news live at 7:30. Tonight on Our News, obey the immigration laws. First tonight on Our News Live at 7:30, the Prime Minister speaks out on illegal immigration in the country. And later, a story of forgiveness as a mother grieving the murder of her son says she is leaning on faith. A proposed rate hike at the National Insurance Board is under review. What you need to know. And we are counting down to the country's 50th anniversary of independence, starting with the unveiling of the logo tonight. Our Italia Hall joins us live a little later. You are looking at live pictures from Rawson Square as celebrations to mark the country's 50th anniversary of independence kicking off tonight with the unveiling of the logo. Live coverage continues right now on Channel 205 with host Christina Dragovich. Hello and welcome to Our News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Megan Shepard. We will check in with our Italia Hall, who is covering the events in downtown Nassau in just a moment. But first, obey our laws. That's the message from Prime Minister Philip Davis today, speaking to the vexing issue of immigration. The Prime Minister made it clear that his administration is addressing it. Berthany McDermott reports.
One day after, the immigration minister sent a bold warning to illegal immigrants in the Bahamas to leave or be deported, Prime Minister Philip Davis doubled down.
We think that all who are here ought to be able to comply with our laws, and we are a country of laws, and we ask those who abide with us or who are here, obey the laws.
The response comes amid public outcry over what some Bahamians are calling an immigration crisis. Minister responsible Keith Bell previously shot down that claim. However, in Parliament on Wednesday, Bell revealed a significant increase in migrant interceptions over the past 2 years. Many have criticized the Davis administration, saying it's dragging its feet on the issue. Well, today, the Prime Minister hit back.
We are addressing it. We are addressing the issues that impact.
On Tuesday, a group of protesters led by Coalition of Independence leader Lincoln Bain spoke out on immigration. According to the Prime Minister, this isn't a new issue.
In fact, this is an issue that's been with us from pre-emancipation. If you check your historical facts, you'll note that the issue of migration in the Bahamas is related to our neighbors to the north and throughout the Caribbean has been with us from pre-emancipation.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
A mother is still reeling tonight following the tragic death of her son to gun violence. 30-year-old Alvarez McCoy was gunned down as he arrived home early Wednesday morning. His mother spoke with our Joshua Williams. Here's that report.
A mother is still coming to terms with her son's death after he was killed yesterday. Donna McCoy shared that her son, a Defense Force officer, had just arrived home from a social function before he was shot. She spoke with me about her son's character.
He was a very humble, obedient child. He was no problem to nobody. He didn't give nobody trouble. He never got mixed up with nobody around here. Or when he went out to socialize or to go to work or to go fix people's cars and things and come back home. But he was a father, and he was a father figure to his children. He took care of his children.
McCoy raised Alvarez as a single mother from the age of 2 and prides herself on the man he became. His crowning achievement, joining the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
I was shouting for joy. I felt so proud of him and everything, because I said, look where God has brought him from. And to know he grew up without a father, because his father died when he was 2 and everything. So God has been good to him.
Despite the brutal killing of her son at home, Miss McCoy says her faith is what keeps her going.
Very important. That's all I got to acknowledge. Very important. That's all who I know. So I acknowledge him as my God and my Savior. He will come to me. He will send his comforter to comfort me.
And as for his killers,
forgive your enemies and love them and pray for them that they would surrender to the Lord and that they will surrender to the policemen.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Thanks, Joshua. A man accused of robbing a businessman and his wife during a home invasion will remain behind bars pending his trial after a judge denied him bail. 29-year-old Dominic Stewart faces charges of armed robbery and kidnapping in connection with the December 30th, 2021 incident at the West Ridge home of a businessman, Andrew Wilson. Prosecutors say Stewart, while concerned with others, robbed Wilson of $25,000, a 2020 Honda Passport SUV worth $80,000, and an assortment of jewelry. Stewart and his alleged accomplices are accused of kidnapping Wilson and his wife and taking them to their business at the mall at Marathon, where they got an additional $40,000. In denying bail, Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson noted that Stewart's co-accused, Randy Williams, was murdered within months of him being freed on bail. Additionally, the judge said that Stewart's trial is set for 2024 and that there had been no unreasonable delay in the case. A 19-year-old man is in hospital in critical condition after being stabbed early this morning in Pinewood Gardens. Police say the victim was at his residence around 2:45 a.m. when he got into an altercation with a family member and was stabbed in the face. The suspect fled the home and the victim was transported to hospital by EMS. Police in Exuma are investigating the circumstances surrounding a suspected arson case at a home in Steventon, Exuma on Wednesday. Police say it was around 3:15 a.m. when a woman who was at home heard what sounded like an explosion. After checking out the sound, the woman noticed that her daughter's Honda Accord was fully engulfed in flames. Officers were able to extinguish the fire, but only after the vehicle received extensive damage. Crime, education, and the economy are topping the government's agenda this year. The Prime Minister outlining those areas during the 32nd Bahamas Business Outlook held this morning at Bahamas. When it comes to the economy, Prime Minister Davis says they're pushing for growth in not only GDP, but also revenue and investments. What they want to see is reduced debt.
It's under consideration, and what are the result of our deliberations will be made known as soon as they're completed.
Another key focus for the Davis administration is education, which the Prime Minister labeled as the main driver for national development. When it comes to crime, Davis says it continues to be a vexing issue, and he says they've taken their concerns as far as the United States White House during his meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris on Tuesday.
Central to our discussion were issues relating to illegal maritime migration and gun smuggling. We agreed to broaden and strengthen the already strong partnership between our two countries in fighting these scourges which do so much to threaten and undermine our society.
Prime Minister Philip Davis says the government is looking at recommendations for a proposed rate increase at the National Insurance Board. His comments come after the board wrote the government recommending a 1.5% increase to prevent the fund from depleting. Last April and again in June, the Prime Minister said a rate increase was not in the cards. Well, a cool evening in the capital this evening. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a look at our current conditions. Greg?
Thanks, and happy Thursday evening, everybody. Yeah, you don't like the cold here, but yeah, we're experiencing some rather nice conditions outside. Temperatures cooling down a bit. 74 degrees outside the studios under partly cloudy skies. A lot of that is high-level clouds moving from west to east out of the Gulf of Mexico. Your winds out of the south-southeast at 6 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature at 74 degrees. Satellite view, ridge of high pressure remains the persistent feature across our area. That is being pushed out towards the east, all ahead of a frontal boundary that's moving into the Gulf of Mexico right now. That front is expected to stall just to the north of the Bahamas by tomorrow and into Saturday, and then we expect another front sometime Monday that should be into across the northwest Bahamas, so we could see a couple isolated showers at that time. That's your first check on weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, Equinor responds to reports of layoffs at the company. That story straight ahead. Drivers on Grand Bahamas still awaiting a Ministry of Works assessment of the Fishing Hole Road. The city manager weighs in. Looking to upgrade your professional life this year? Our Jamila Mizik gets insight from an expert when our news returns. Welcome back, and once again you are looking at live pictures from the unveiling of the 50th anniversary of Independence logo downtown in Rawson Square. Be sure to tune into channel 205 with host Christina Dragovich for continued live coverage. Well, Equinor responding to reports that some 30 employees were sent home on Wednesday as the company is preparing to have a new owner. Officials telling Our News that around 30 employees on Grand Bahama have been asked to stay home until the end of January 2023. The company confirming that those employees have not been laid off, and the decision is related to a transition process that is ongoing, adding that the employees' compensation remains current. The company also responding to reports that suggested there was another oil spill in East Grand Bahama. Equinor officials say the video is not recent and are dispelling those claims, which they say are false and misleading. It appears as if the Fishing Hole Road causeway has not yet been assessed by the Ministry of Works. Well, tonight, Deputy Director and City Manager at the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Troy McIntosh, is giving an update on the causeway, as well as lighting issues, which he says the GBPA is aggressively working to repair. Italia Hall reports.
It is a new year, and for some that means...
I've had communications with the ministry, and they're still working through the best remediation plan. In fact, as early as this morning, I would have spoken to the ministry personnel to look at where they are, and they're furiously working to solve it in the shortest possible time.
That's the Deputy Director and City Manager at the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Troy McIntosh, who says all parties agreed that issues relating to the Fishing Hole Causeway would be rectified within 2 months so that the causeway can reopen. He confirmed that as of early this week, the Ministry of Works has not yet assessed the causeway. Now, you may remember earlier this month, the only road that connects Freeport to West Grand Bahama was closed to the public, following several accidents that many motorists say happened as a result of their vehicles sliding. Since then, the former road was open to the public. Now, there have been reports that the causeway is made out of concrete, and oil from vehicles can possibly be the issue. Here's what the city manager had to say about that.
We don't know conclusively, and that was one of the matters that the ministry had promised to bring a team to investigate, to conclude and to definitively say that is what the issue was, or perhaps it would have contributed to that, knowing that we know that one of the factors is speed.
The city manager is once again urging motorists to drive with caution as lights on the Fishing Hole Road are still not working. He says they've gotten reports that some drivers are not courteous when using the four-way stop.
The cabinet, the control cabinet for that intersection that runs the intersection is not an off-the-shelf equipment. So with the global economy the way it is today, that cabinet will take anywhere between 10 to 16 weeks to be on island. And so that's not acceptable to us, but we're looking at and we're working with technicians to look at the short term to have that repaired.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Italia Hall.
Thanks, Italia. Well, if you're looking to improve your professional development goals, tonight our Jamila Mizik tells us how you can put some helpful tips into practice.
It is a new year, and for some that means new professional development goals. CEO of Astute Talent Management, Ahmad Thompson, says jumpstarting that journey begins with you.
Take a self-inventory. What are the skills that I currently have now? What are the skills that I need to get to my next level? Who in business, who in the workspace, who in this industry do I know that is doing that I want to do and crushing it? Emulate them, engage them, try to figure out what it is that they're doing and understand the science of it all.
Thompson says shifting your focus does not always mean having a big, glamorous plan. His advice is to take things one day at a time.
Understand what caused you not to be your best today. When you understand the things in life that are holding you back or keeping you from where you're supposed to be, you can control them. Control your words. When you say things going on an interview, they ain't gonna hire me. That lady over there looks smarter than me. They never wanted to give me this job in the first place. Those things are gonna be fulfilled. What you say, you see. Take a moment, take a beat, and I always tell people, whatever you do for free that everybody calls you to do, start to charge for that.
Thompson says about 250 residents will have an opportunity to learn more about these practices at a professional development conference this weekend.
I needed a job because I'm over this one. I am absolutely loathing this thing that I do every day called work. I hate it. I want to go from around this place. They told me this is my last day. They called me after 10 years and told me today is the last day, and that's a gut-wrenching feeling. And then lastly, people who have been overlooked at work, always being told they're not quite ready yet for the promotion. You don't have what it takes just yet. You're almost there. and they feel stuck. They feel like they can't move forward in their employment journey. This conference is for those people.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When Our News comes back from the break, our Italia Hall joins us live from Rawson Square with the launch of the 50th Independence logo. Plus, a push for more solutions to poverty in the country. We have the details when Our News returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. As the country approaches the half-a-century mark, Special Advisor for the 50th Independence Anniversary events, George Smith says more needs to be done to tackle poverty. Smith making the comments as he was addressing the Bahamas Business Outlook, saying higher learning and equal opportunity is part of the solution.
We cannot just have the rich getting richer and call that success. The poor must be helped out of poverty and on the road to success. Then we will know that we are truly empowering people. We must heighten our commitment to improving our educational standard and facilities.
Smith says while the country has had many successes, there's still more work to be done.
People in what they see and hear must recognize efforts at producing long-term benefits for our communities. Yes, we will party, and party we shall. But even these will enhance the quality of our communities. But the parties are a secondary consideration. Our projects and events must recognize, focus on and celebrate our Bahamas and our wonderful people.
The official logo to mark the country's 50th anniversary officially unveiled tonight at around 7:42 in a special ceremony kicking off celebrations on the road to 50. Joining us now live from Rawson Square in downtown Nassau is our Italia Hall, who is following all the activity. What are we seeing right now? Sounds like Junkanoo.
Well, Megan, I am here on Bay Street for the 50th anniversary of the Bahamas logo and theme launch. And I can tell you, Bahamian culture has been on full display tonight. Now, so far, the logo and theme was just revealed, which is black and gold and includes the Bahamas. One nation, one legacy, our future. My cameraman will try to pick that up on the big screen. That's not being displayed right now, as Junkanoo is in the background, but that logo was heavily celebrated by the crowd. Now, the police pop band was on earlier, putting on a spectacular performance, as well as the Bahamas National Youth Choir, and now Junkanoo. And I can tell you that there's been a huge sense of Bahamian pride among residents in the stands, waving their flag and dancing to the Bahamian music. Many dignitaries are also in attendance. Some are the Governor General, Cornelius A. Smith, Dame Marguerite Pindling, former Prime Ministers Hubert Ingram and Perry Christie, and so many others, including the Commissioner of Police and the nation's leader, Philip Davis, and his wife. Now, Chair of the Independence Secretariat, Leslie Bryce, welcoming the crowd and telling the group to expect a grand celebration from now until July 2024. She also encouraged Bahamians to attend as many events as possible. The Prime Minister also bringing brief remarks. He says there's so much for Bahamians to celebrate over the past 50 years. The Prime Minister was also presented with the golden Jubilee flag. And Megan, this event is being celebrated across the Bahamas. I understand that there are several watch parties, including in Grand Bahama and other islands across the country. But for now, I'm Natalia Hall reporting live on Bay Street. I'm going to continue to take part in the fun. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Natalia. I can see and feel the Bahamian pride just oozing out downtown in Rawson Square. Once again, that is our Natalia Hall reporting live from downtown for the unveiling of the logo for the 50th anniversary of independence. Live coverage of that event continuing now with host Christina Dragovich on Channel 205. For more on this, check ournews.bs as well as from the Our News Bahamas Facebook page. Well, a rough night for Buddy Hield and the Indiana Pacers as they got rolled by the Thunder. Meanwhile, action continuing in local volleyball. Let's take a look with our Marcellus Hall.
All right, thanks, Megan. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Well, it was a very historic day and a special day for Olympian Frank Rutherford, bronze medal winner in 1992, and the games in Spain being honored by having the subdivision Frank Rutherford Close named in his honor right here on Pam Byron Road. So again, that festivity is taking place. We'll give you details on that coming up for you tomorrow. Meanwhile, however, there are other sporting things going on around the capital. Let's take a quick look at what's going on. Buddy Hield and the Indiana Pacers taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder with a 3-game winning streak, trying to stretch it to 4. And let's see how this win went. Rough night as far as the Pacers were concerned. This one got away from him as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Isaiah Joe each scored 23 points. Thunder rolling. 126-106 ends up being the final score. Their 4th straight win. Meanwhile, for the Pacers, they suffer another tough loss. As far as Buddy's numbers are concerned, well, he had a rough night of it, as you can imagine, with them losing this one. He played just 19 minutes, had just 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists in the ball game on a miserable night shooting. Just took 4 shots, actually, 1 of 4 from the floor. And again, just did not quite get it going. Coaching staff deciding to kind of end the misery there in that situation. And that's your look at sports here on this Thursday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Megan.
Still ahead on Our News tonight, don't go anywhere just yet. Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast after this quick break. Welcome back. Partly cloudy skies may be ahead, but don't take my word for it. Greg is back with your extended forecast.
Yeah, thanks, Megan, and happy Thursday evening once again, everybody. We do have a front boundary that's moving across North Florida that's expected to stall just to the north of the islands. But there are some high-level clouds moving along with that system as well, and that will keep us, as you mentioned, partly cloudy, but not much in terms of any significant rainfall expected with the system as the system continues to push towards us and stalls just in northern islands. This is where the front is located in the Gulf of Mexico and northern Florida. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, that front will just park itself across the northern Bahamas. A lot more shower activity in the Gulf of Mexico associated with that system should remain there, but the high pressure system will dominate our weather for the next several days and into the weekend. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be very nice. Southeast to south, 5 to 10 knots, seas 1 to 3 feet. Low tide will be at 11:35 tonight. For the central and southeastern islands, east to south easterly flow 10 to 15 knots expected. Your seas will be running 2 to 4 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day planner, nothing happening really. That front boundary will stay to the north of us. Another one is expected on Monday, so we could see a couple isolated showers, but all in all, it should be beautiful and warm for the next several days. Megan?
Sounds good, Greg. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepherd. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a safe and wonderful evening.